So Fernando Mendoza wins the Heisman Trophy. And no, it was not the most impressive statistical season that we've ever seen. By the way, did you know this is the Big Ten's first Heisman Trophy winner since 2006? Troy Smith was the last one. Go look at the lineup of past Heisman Trophy winners. SEC's in there, Pac-12 is in there, ACC's in there, Big 12 is in there. Big Ten hasn't seen a Heisman Trophy winner in a hot minute. Indiana hasn't seen one ever in the history of its program, which is really why he won the award, because Indiana just beat Ohio State, which is certifiably insane, patently absurd, completely out of the realm of what should be possible. And yet Curt Cignetti and Fernando Mendoza just pulled that off and won the Big Ten. They had not just failed to win a Big Ten championship in my lifetime. Indiana, or probably your lifetime, depending on how old you are. I see my demographic numbers. Some of you might have seen it. Most of you didn't. Most of you probably didn't even have your parents around and alive the last time Indiana won a Big Ten football championship. It has been a very, very long time. So Indiana being in that position is why Mendoza gets this award. Yes, he was incredibly clutch. Game-winning drives on the road against Oregon in the College Game Day matchup and against Penn State on the road as well. His numbers in those games are not going to blow you away. Diego Pavia has got more total yards and more total touchdowns than Fernando Mendoza this season. So why does Mendoza get the Heisman? Because what we have seen throughout the course of the last many years is it doesn't always go to the player with the best individual season. Sometimes it does. Jaden Daniels had the best numbers in 2023. Michael Penix's team was having the better season. So Fernando Mendoza and Indiana were able to get the benefit of the doubt that Michael Penix and his Washington team, by association, were not able to get from the Heisman voters. And I don't have any issue with Fernando Mendoza winning the Heisman Trophy because he's had an incredible season. He's a great player. He has outperformed my expectations. I did not see this from him when the season began. And to have Indiana in this spot, you know, that cliche you've probably heard many a times when you watch the Heisman ceremony, which is among the biggest teases that ESPN puts out as a television product, because holy smokes, we're going to show you this. We're going to show you every single finalist's 6-year-old highlights in the backyard. We're going to do this for a full hour, and then we're going to tell you who wins. Like, why don't you just... You could condense it down a little bit, ESPN. Just a scotch. Anyway, I digress. Mendoza winning this really fulfills the cliche. This isn't just my award. This is a team award. It really is. Do I think that's what the Heisman Trophy should be? No. If I were voting, would I have voted for Fernando Mendoza over Diego Pavia? Frankly, I might have just said, let's not do the Heisman Trophy this year because I don't think any of these guys have had Heisman caliber seasons compared to what we've seen in years past. But the team success of Indiana is what put Mendoza over the top. Well, is that what the Heisman Trophy is supposed to be about? Because Indiana's defense is spectacular. Well, Vanderbilt's is not. Vanderbilt is Diego Pavia, and that's it. And I do find Diego Pavia's actions after all of this, posting on social media, F the voters, and, you know, there's a video of him going around flipping off some sign that says Indiana, anything like that. It's childish. It's not particularly mature. Am I going to sit here and pretend to be wildly offended by Diego Pavia is killing college football? Man, no, he's not. He's not being as ridiculous as Notre Dame collectively after they got correctly left out of the college football playoff. That's not on the same level. Is it a good look? No, it isn't. If you want to dislike him for that, that's fine. I think that's your prerogative, and I don't have a huge objection to it either way. But Mendoza winning this award, again, just makes me feel confused. What is it? What is it that we are rewarding? Because the best individual statistical season does not belong to Fernando Mendoza. He should have been a finalist, of course. Of course. But why isn't Julian Sayin getting more respect? Would that be because he's being incredibly well supported by the team around him and he's just playing really well? Well, Mendoza's got more talent around him than Diego Pavia does at Vanderbilt. And the whole story about Mendoza taking Indiana to a place they've never been before, which I still can't believe is the real world that I'm talking about here on the show, it absolutely applies to Vanderbilt. They didn't make the playoff. You know why? They don't have as good of a team. But Diego Pavia had the better individual season with the same exact sort of hurdles that Mendoza dealt with at Indiana. And that's that you're coming from a place that's never even sniffed this level of success before. Vanderbilt won 10 games in a season for, I think, the first time ever, I don't even remember. I lost track in my head at the number of unique achievements these guys have helped their programs get to over the last couple of years. Indiana had never had a 10-win season before last year. Vanderbilt was ranked inside the top 10 at one point this year. They'd never done that before. They beat number 1 ranked Alabama as a 22.5-point home dog last season. Does Diego Pavia not have enough narrative support? Like, what is it exactly? And I get the sense that it's the one, that it's that number 1 next to Indiana's name, and that they won the Big Ten championship that puts them over the top. Well, Mendoza made the play to go ahead of Ohio State in that game. Made the throw, receiver makes an incredible catch. Pretty sure it was Elijah Surratt, because of course it was. Okay, I'm on board with Mendoza being in New York City. But the Heisman's supposed to be an individual award, because the Indiana defense, last I checked, held Ohio State to their worst point total of the season. It's the worst the offense has looked since week 1, when Julian Sayin was starting as a college quarterback for the first time against Texas, who has a great defense. I just cannot get behind the inconsistency with the Heisman voters over the years. Here, we're going to reward the biggest gripe I will ever have with the Heisman voters, and people have plenty. It is not Ashton Genty not winning last year. I said I would have voted for Ashton Genty if I had a vote. I don't have one. This year, I probably would have landed on Diego Pavia, because I think this is an individual award. But just give me some consistency. Mendoza winning and Penix not is inconsistent. Jaden Daniels had the better statistical season. Well, Diego Pavia had the better statistical season. What's the difference? What am I missing? What's the criteria? I wish we could just be more consistent with it. So, is it the end of the world? I mean, no. Like, Mendoza's a worthy Heisman winner for what he's done there. But is it exactly right? No, not really. All right, real quick, and then I get out of here. Just a 60-second closing thought on Army-Navy, America's game. I love this matchup every year. It looks the same. The uniforms, spectacular. I thought Navies were good. I thought Armies were great. Navy wins the game 17-16. I got a point spread pick correct. Line provided by our friends at FanDuel, of course. That's not the only reason that I bring it up. Maybe I'm about to get hot going through the college football playoff. We'll just have to wait and see. But if you did not see, at least go on YouTube and find yourself the highlights so you can see the madness that unfolded in this game. Because Navy, in the same game, fumbled at the 1-yard line, stripped Army's recovery, and then scored on 4th and goal from the 8 for teams that are barely capable of completing a forward pass, and then also had Blake Horvath, with the most calm, cool, and collected moment I've ever seen, have the ball popcorn out of his hands on a quarterback run into the crowd. He gets it back and reaches forward, and then they go for it on 4th down, and you knew they were running. Everybody at the line of scrimmage, who's more physical, who can get the push? Navy wins America's game 17-16. 10-2. 10-2 Navy goes. It's a good season. It's just an awesome football game, and it doesn't need to have bigger ramifications. It doesn't need to have some statement. It's a great football game across the board, and it always is every year. So well done to Navy that overcame a deficit, by the way. That's not something that typically happens with a 4th and goal from the 8-yard line. I tell you what, that was some kind of football game. I might go back and figure out how I can watch the whole thing again, because it was just that much fun. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. Until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.